Hi, in this lesson, I will want us to use this question to understand how to find the gradient of a straight line given 2 points. But before we get started with this question, I want us to understand the concept of gradient. What is gradient? Now, if I have my Cartesian coordinate and I have a straight line, this straight line would have passed through some points. We'll be picking 2 out of these points to understand the concept of gradient. Let's label this first point P and let's label this second point Q. Now, if P have coordinate of x2, y2, and Q has coordinate of x1, y1. Now, the gradient of this straight line is the rate of change of the y-axis with respect to the x-axis. That is, the gradient of the line PQ is the same thing as the rate of change of my y-axis with respect to the x-axis. That is, the rate of change will be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So the gradient of any line is given by y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. While if at the same time we ask for the slope of this line, the angle of slope of this line, the angle of slope of this line becomes the tan inverse of this line, y. Look at it this way. If I have this coming down and I have here, obviously I have a right angle triangle like this. Now, from here to here, I have y2 minus y1. And from Q to this point, I have x2 minus x1. So if I have an angle here, the angle of slope of this line to the x-axis is the same thing as what you have here. If I have theta here, I'll have theta here. So that tan of theta is the same thing as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which is the same thing as my gradient. That's the same thing as my what? My gradient. So that theta itself now will become the tan inverse of my gradient. So at any point we are asked for the gradient of a straight line that passes through 2 points, we'll be thinking of y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And the slope, the angle of slope of that line is the same thing as the inverse or as the tan inverse of the gradient of the line. Now let's get into question 1. For question 1, we're told that we're asked to find the gradient of a line joining these 2 points together. Now let's draw our points. Now if I have my y-axis and here I have my x-axis. Now here, let's start this on the x-axis. This is 4 and here is 6. On the y-axis, let's pick this point as 3 and here as 9. My first point is given as 4 on the x-axis to 3 on the y-axis, which is here. And my second point is given as 6 on the x-axis to 9 on the y-axis. So that I have my line passing through the 2 points this way. Now, if you look at it carefully, here becomes my y2 minus y1, and here also becomes my x2 minus x1. So that the gradient of this line M is equals to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which is equals to 3 minus 9 over 4 minus 6, which is equals to 3 minus 9, that's minus 6, over 4 minus 6, that's minus 2. 2 here is the negative signs cancels each other. 2 here is 1, and 2 in 6 is equals to 3. So that authoritatively, my M is equals to 3, and the slope, the angle of slope of this line is equals to, that's the theta, that's the angle of slope. If you look at the line, the angle of slope here will be equals to the tan inverse of 3. What is the tan inverse of 3? The angle of slope, theta, is the same thing as 71.57 degrees. Now, I want you to take a look at this second question. I want you to pause the video and look at this second question on your own. Okay, now, the question says find the gradient of the line joining -4, is joining the point -4 to this point. Now, let's draw our Cartesian coordinate once again, so that I have here is y, and here is what? X. For the first point, I have -4 and -2. Here is -4 and -2. And for the second point, I have 3 and -5. Here is my 3 and -5. So that my straight line comes this way. Now, what is the slope of this line? I want to call my x1, y1 to be the same thing as -4 and -2, and my x2, y2 to be the same thing as 3 and -5. So that the gradient of the line M will be the same thing as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which is equals to y2, my y2 in this case is -5, minus -2, which is my y1, over my x2 in this case is 3 minus -4. So that my gradient becomes -5 plus 2 over 3 plus 4. Look at it this way. You have two negative signs. When they multiply each other, they become what? Plus. So that my M becomes -3 over 7. Now, what is the angle of slope? Remember, the angle of slope is always given as theta, which is given as the tan inverse of M. Tan inverse of the gradient. That's the tan inverse of 3 over 7. If you check with your calculator, the theta will be given as 336.8 degrees. So with this, I hope you now understand how to find the gradient of the line joining 2 points. Thank you and have a lovely time.